TV News at 10. I am Nifemi Okuntoye. We start off with judicial matters. The Supreme Court has upheld the power of the president to declare state of emergency in any state to prevent the breakdown of law and order or degeneration into a state of chaos or anarchy. The apex court, in a split decision of 6-1, held that such suspension of elected officials must be within a limited period. Justice Mohammed Idris held in the lead majority judgment that Section 305 of the Constitution empowers the president to deploy extraordinary measures to restore normalcy where emergency rule is declared. The judgment was on the suit filed by Adamawa State and 10 other People's Democratic Party-led states, challenging the propriety of the state of emergency declared by President Tinubu in Rivers State. Meanwhile, the People's Democratic Party has reacted to the Supreme Court ruling on the power of the president to suspend democratic structure during state of emergency. The party says while it respects the authority of the apex court and recognizes its finality within our jurisdiction, it's compelled to draw attention to what it calls the grave dangers that can emanate from the interpretation of the reason of some people. According to the party, the interpretation has the potential to reverse the hard-won democratic gains by unwittingly making state governments completely subservient to the federal government, forcing them to seek to connect to the center by joining the ruling party, as we already witnessed. The party argues that it doesn't understand how elected president can be empowered to dismantle the democratic structures of a federating unit, sack elected officials and appoint leaders there without consciously promoting authoritarianism and entrenching tyranny. Senior Advocate of Nigeria, Kunle Adegoke, joins me on the news this hour for more on this development. Senior Advocate, thanks for joining us on TV News at 10. Quickly, let's talk about precisely how you read this judgment. The Supreme Court struck out this case, but its comments are now being widely read as backing the president's action in Rivers State. In simple terms, did the court actually settle this issue, or would you say people are reading too much into remarks that were not the main decision?
Thank you very much. It's my pleasure to be here this night. The decision of the Supreme Court is one that I believe has actually settled this issue. The Supreme Court has gone the whole length to make sure that it actually pronounced on what is germane in determining the powers of the president to declare a state of emergency, notwithstanding that the plaintiffs in the particular case did not have the locus standing to bring the case before the court. And why the Supreme Court had to do this? Because in a situation where the Supreme Court has decided that a plaintiff has no locus, the next thing is to strike out the matter, and that would be the end of it. But in most cases, people have always challenged the Supreme Court that it should have pronounced on the subject matter. Being the final court, exercising such a power will not be outside what is legitimate, because it is only the court that can make such a pronouncement without an appeal being lodged against its decision. The Supreme Court has taken further steps to pronounce on the extent of the powers of the president to make a declaration of state of emergency, and the fact that it is subject strictly to the limitations imposed by the Constitution. It is not a power at large, and I would say that people are not reading what is not contained in the judgment into it when they criticize the judgment or when they make expressions of approval of the particular judgment. The Supreme Court has basically laid down the law as it should be with respect to declaration of state of emergency by the president.
The PDP says this judgment could weaken federalism by allowing a president with the support of the National Assembly to suspend elected state leaders and institutions. Would you say that this ruling is shifting too much power to the center, and do we have enough legal brakes to ensure that it's not abused?
Yes, I verily believe that there is enough safeguards within the Constitution itself to ensure that such power would not be abused by the president or even the National Assembly. Let us come to look at it. The Supreme Court considered comparatively the situation in India and Pakistan, where there are specific provisions in their constitutions enabling the president in those countries to usurp the powers of the legislature and the executive in the state, to make sure that their federal legislature will take care of the legislative functions of the province or the state in India and Pakistan. In Nigeria, the constitution provides for a limited scope within which the president can make such a declaration. There are certain circumstances. If there is war, threat to national security, or maybe a threat of invasion of the nation, these circumstances have been stipulated. So no president can just wake up one morning and say, I hereby declare a state of emergency in so state without such conditions being present. And the president cannot even make such a declaration without taking approval from the National Assembly. And where the president is even making such a declaration and is putting it in a gazette, he must immediately approach the National Assembly. What is the interpretation of immediately? Within 2 days, if the National Assembly is in session, within 10 days, where the National Assembly is not in session. Now, in order to check the powers of the president in making a declaration of state of emergency, that is why the National Assembly, that is made up of people in the Senate, about 309 members of the Senate, and the members of the National Assembly, the House of Representatives, to now review the circumstance leading to the declaration of state of emergency by the president, either to approve it or reject it. So where such an institutional safeguard has been provided, then we cannot say that the president has the liberty to do whatever he likes. Then even the approval by the National Assembly can be reviewed by the judiciary in line with the Constitution, and that's why Section 305 provides such a gamut that it is possible for such an abuse to be checkmated by the relevant institutions. I don't believe that the Constitution in this regard does not provide for such necessary safeguard. They are provided.
Absolutely. It is one thing is certain. We've not had the end of reactions to this court decision, but it's a good place to leave it on the news this hour. Senior Advocate of Nigeria, Mr. Degoke, thank you so much for talking to us.